Hey, everybody.
What's that?
What's that, Nico?
Okay, I'm here.
That's one hell of a mask. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to On the Inside podcast. We are your hosts, Sandbox, Sean, Amerie, and Nico. It's Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
I don't know what
Happy
to do with
Halloween,
that.
everyone.
Okay.
Hey, I've never actually celebrated Halloween in my entire 30 plus years of life.
I have once when I was in the US, so just on 1 year. Yeah.
Me too.
Just 1 year?
Yeah, I was only there 1 year, but yeah. And so 1 year of Halloween. Yeah.
Hey, yeah, and we're all wearing something kind of different. It's my first time wearing a onesie.
Congratulations.
Yeah. You look great.
Do you want to show your
It's
entire
not
outfit?
distracting at all.
Huh?
Show off
No,
your
no.
outfit. Come on. He's really decked like head to toe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just like my you guys can't see. I think if I stretch the whole costume might tear apart.
I see. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I have cow slippers as well.
Oh, cool. Really? You do?
I do.
Okay.
Okay. Emery, any reason why you chose to wear whatever you are wearing now? And
I'm meant to be a gothic Little Red Riding Hood, but I think I look more like sleep deprived. Little Red Riding
and Nico, what's up with that mask?
Yeah, so it's wait, let me show it to you guys. It's actually a local artist work who does like masks with like these are bits of like tin cans. So this is actually a teapot that's been like repurposed
Oh,
as
wow.
an elephant head. Yeah. And so these are bits these you can see
Like
are,
you made it?
cans. No, a local artist did it.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't make it. Yeah. Not on purpose. Like it was here in the house. And I just took it out. Yeah, I had no time to find a proper kind of costume. But it works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, after we got past trying to figure out what's going on there.
Yeah. So there are eyes, nose. I mean, you get it, right? Yeah.
Hey. Oh, we have some comments. Ibrahim. Hey, little hi. Moo. Yeah. For those of you who are listening on the audio version of the podcast, I'm wearing a cow onesie. Well, actually, because I was born in the year of the ox, right? I think the closest is a cow.
Oh, yeah, makes sense. Right.
Yeah. I remember there was once my mom told me, "Oh, you're born in the year of the ox. You got to work very hard, because oxes have to work very hard in the fields last time."
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. Is that true though? Is it just your mom saying that, or?
I know that seems to be the story of my life now, right?
Is it that's how you identify with the
cow? Yeah, working so hard, being paid peanuts.
Right. Okay.
Okay, I can say that because I kind of run my own company, right? So I can say that I'm not bashing any employer.
So you're only blaming yourself, so that's fine.
Okay, everyone, welcome to season 2. This is where we discuss certain emotions related to a various theme, and in season 2, our focus is on relationships. Well, last week we had an epic 2-hour-long conversation, and we largely discussed what the relationship dynamics are like, right? I mean, are you friends? How do you know you are more than friends? We spoke a little bit about dating apps, right? And I suspect based on today's topic, we're going to carry on discussing a little bit about dating apps, since it's such a big part of the way we meet people now, and we well, not just friends, but maybe more than friends, right? Whatever more than friends means to you. And this week we are going to discuss this incredible topic by Amerie, Ghosted. Halloween love story.
Why is it so close to your heart, Amerie?
No, I just wanted a pun, okay, guys.
Oh,
Really?
okay.
Yeah,
Right.
it works,
Halloween
right?
theme. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so maybe Emery, I'll just ask you first, right? Just for the benefit of everyone who is watching or listening, what do you understand by the term ghosting?
Okay, so before we start, I mean, the reason why we need to define this is because I just asked one of my friends about his ghosting experience, and if you're tuning in, this is the reason why we have to define it, because
wait,
it's not
as a
about the
ghoster
ghost in your
or-
army days. What's
Oh,
that?
I was wondering whether it was experienced as a ghoster or as a ghostie, or I don't know.
No, as a human being with like
Okay.
supernatural stuff. So, and I was like, no,
Okay,
that's
so
not what I meant.
unrelated.
But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. So ghosting, we're kind of looking at the act of one suddenly disappearing, right? In the midst of maybe good conversation, just suddenly just gone, no explanation, nothing, and the other party's left hanging. Yeah, that's the experience we're looking at.
And just for the record, have you been ghosted before, Emery, Nico?
Yes.
Yes. All right.
Probably.
Nico, have you been ghosted
No,
before?
I don't. I thought about that, but I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah, I don't recall.
How can it be?
Wow.
Really?
I pushed it out of my.
In denial.
No, really, I don't. Yeah, I don't recall. But something might come up as we talk. No, I mean there were time where I might have kind of was, but kind of pushed to get some answer, and got it, and obviously was as you would expect if you're gonna get ghosted. So it was technically, I suppose it was initially, yeah. So but the person eventually decided that would be nice to say something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Have you ghosted anyone before then?
I have. I think I have, yeah.
Yeah.
But
All
not. But I need to qualify though. So I think well, maybe we don't say too much now. But I think not. I don't think the person really had big expectations of getting a kind of reply actually.
Okay. All right.
So really,
Emery,
not the traumatic ghosting where you have like things going well and then suddenly it's like dead. Yeah. Clearly, yeah.
Okay. Emery, have you ghosted anyone before?
So if you're going with that definition, like things going really well and suddenly like something weird, no, I don't think I have. Like, I
You're
think
so
it's always
virtuous.
important to me. What?
You're so pure. You're so virtuous.
I sense sarcasm. This might be the end of our friendship. Yeah. So, no,
Wait,
but I
wait,
think it's
so
important,
Do things have to be good and you suddenly disappear? Is that considered ghosting, or it's like, things are just seem okay and you disappear? That's also considered ghosting?
I mean, I don't know. I guess it's really subjective, right?
Okay.
But yeah.
Well, it's largely the act of suddenly disappearing.
To be fair, yeah. I mean, to be fair, I think we use ghosting when we talk about it, like with friends, and you, typically if you know that whatever's going on gonna die eventually, stop getting replies, and you don't talk about your friends. If you expect it, you see it coming.
You just go, it's dead.
You're like, okay, it's not even a topic for conversation. You don't need to, kind of died of its own death. It's not like one kind of sided thing. You weren't blindsided, essentially.
Do you think it's okay to ghost someone? Nico?
No. I mean, I think no, I'd say no. But again, I don't know by what definition you go. So I don't think like I've ever ghosted someone like in kind of brutal way where the person had really had like strong things are going well and suddenly I'm like not there anymore. I don't think I've done that. And actually, I would say there might even be dates I've been to where I probably could have not gone. Meaning, no, I said, okay, I'm gonna let's do that on the date and say, okay, it's not really working. Even though, I mean, on the date, as in actually talk to the person in real life. even though probably a phone call would have been fine, or the person really didn't have expectations that there would be more coming. So if something, sometimes I've been more like on the too polite side, maybe. So yeah,
polite
I'll leave it at that.
ghosting.
So I think it really depends on the dynamic of relationship for me. Like for me, yeah. If I feel like not much going on either side, there's time where I was like, okay, I won't bother even.
Okay.
Yeah.
Emery, what do you think? Is it okay to ghost someone?
No. No.
And why?
I think it's rude, right? As I'm sure a lot of my friends would agree with if you're watching this. Yeah, we had the conversation, so I know. Yeah, so I mean, personally, I like to close the loop. So I don't like when things are hanging. I think it's just, important to let someone else know if something wasn't working.
Do you think that ghosting it's
What
it's
about
like
you, Sean?
Exactly. Waiting
what
for
about
that.
me?
What about
Yeah.
you, Sean?
You put us on a hot seat, and yourself?
We're
What-
not even 10. We're barely 10 minutes in.
what question do you want me to answer?
Have you ever ghosted someone?
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
You see him shifting in his seat now.
I think
No, it's hard to admit.
No, I think it's even more apparent on dating apps because it's easier to ghost someone that way, right? Just by not replying. Last time, I think when I used to have this, I was very fortunate to have this person who was interested in me, and we had, kind of like something going, and she would call my home every night to chat. At that time, I was about 14, 15 years old. And I couldn't take it right? Because every night I just couldn't take it anymore. And I suddenly disappeared. Every time she called, I'll tell my mom to say, "Oh, I'm not free," or something like that. Yeah.
Why?
I just wasn't interested in that anymore. It was way too overbearing for me. Maybe because I'm the kind of person who I appreciate space, I appreciate privacy, and so sometimes when it's too much of this and I feel like I don't have space for myself, then I tend to pull away. Yeah, and that is.
So what stopped you from saying something like, "Oh, I need a bit of space"?
I think at 14 or 15 years old, I could not properly define that that need. Right, all I knew was that I can't take any more of this. The downside, I mean, the bad thing about it is someone was left hanging, right?
Yeah.
And she has no idea what happened. She thought, oh, was I interested in some other girl? Or actually, not really, no. So, yeah. Then, I mean, when I ask myself, why did I not just tell her? I think the truth was that I did not dare. I did not have the courage to actually verbally say that, oh, I don't think this is working out. Yeah. In fact, I don't even know if it was working out or not, right? Because I'd never been in that situation before. So it was pretty scary. And I didn't have the courage to be able to verbally say something like that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking whether ghosting, it's because of a misinterpretation of the way both parties assess the situation. Right? Maybe one person feels like, hey, actually things are going extremely well, and another person feels like, no, actually something is not right. But they don't realize that difference in opinion. Right? And then when the person who doesn't feel something is right tends to pull away, then the other person feels ghosted. Yeah. I don't know. What do you think? A misinterpretation of or a misassessment of the way things really are? Any thoughts?
Could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, one party could be a lot more invested and the other could be less. But then again, it all boils down to how honest each party is, isn't it? I suppose in a conversation, it could be quite apparent right? If there is good energy, if things are going okay, and if certainly one party feels like they're just putting up a bit of a front, or trying to suppress their boredom or disinterest by trying to overcompensate in some way. I mean, these sorts of things are the exact kinds of conversations we need to have, right, to avoid a situation of later ghosting someone just because there wasn't enough of the honesty at the start.
And why do you think people just suddenly disappear like that? Right? I mean, I don't know. Okay, so the way that I look at it is, it's probably pretty similar to the reason why you might not want to proceed with somebody onto the next level of the relationship, right? Something, I don't know, something people did, something people said, or something's just like, you mentioned last week, it's just the vibe, it's not right. and you decide to disappear. Yeah, any other reasons you can think of to why people would suddenly just disappear?
Yeah, I was thinking, so when you mentioned not reading the signals, sometimes that things are not going as well. I'm not sure. So, well, I think we should be careful, because you don't also want to put the blame on the person who's actually don't want to be putting the blame on anyone, I feel. But be early to say that on the discussion maybe, but I feel like in any case you definitely don't want to put the blame on the person getting ghosted, because you could say, okay, the person just had to read the signals. It wasn't that obvious that wasn't that it was working. And so I think sometimes from the person who's ghosted, it can be that kind of attitudes that that person was completely delusional and was not just connected, was in their own fantasy. So there can be some kind of quality of contempt sometimes, that you wouldn't even bother let the person know what's going on, that you would think that like she's so not connected with what was going on that there's no point even engaging. I think there's sometimes there can be that sense, which is always the worst kind of thing you want to have when you're dealing with people. I mean, if you have contempt in any kind of relationship, that's when things really break down. And also I feel when in such situations, there's sometimes responsibility on a person who eventually would be ghosting. Because I feel like sometimes there are some people who tend to be, and that's the case sometimes for me, like who tends to be overly polite, I would say. Like actually don't really show how they feel. Like in the sense, like during like a date, for instance, especially on first date, would be really nice, really accommodating, and which really would but which might feel just different inside, and that makes it very difficult for the other person to read what's going on. You see what I mean? So from the outside, even from the outside observer who's not involved, you would say, "Oh, this is going well. There's connection. They're both being like kind with each other." But actually, one other person is really very just being polite.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about earlier. I totally agree.
Yeah, and I feel like but that's really coming from a place of like not being comfortable with like a certain form of vulnerability in communication, or being scared of finding yourself in an awkward situation, like it's difficult to deal with situation. I think that's it. There's a lot of different things there. It's quite complex, I would say. Like the dynamics I feel it's very complex.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. What you just said, Nico, because I think with ghosting, a big part of it is also maybe conflict avoidance, because it is a tough conversation to have, right? To tell someone, whatever we're investing is in, this is not really quite working out. And for a lot of people, it could be, a less painful option to ghost, right? Because you don't have to have that really awkward conversation, and you don't have to go through that sense of maybe even going into a deeper conversation than you want to. right? It's easier to kind of avoid the whole thing and all.
Yeah, and I feel like when it comes to, sometimes it depends on the stage of the relationship as well, right? If it's pretty early, okay, in current times, right, when you're texting, etc., you met up maybe once, it's very early, and if the sense is sometimes that the other person is also very, very early and not so emotionally involved. So like I would make that assessment sometimes based on the types of responses, based on the feel that I get. And then if I just stop replying, and if the person doesn't follow up anymore, then the way I read the situation is, hey, it looks mutual to me. Because if you're really, okay, the way that I see it, right? If you are really, really interested in keeping up a conversation with somebody, or you are really interested in the person, you're not going to give it up at just one instance where the person replies late or doesn't reply. Yeah, if you're that ready to give it up, I don't think it's something that was that important to you at the start, right from the start. And based on based on what I've experienced in dating apps, that is very commonly the case, right? I've had instances where someone did not reply me, and because I was really interested in getting to know the person better, and it's not even like, oh, I want to be with this person for the rest of my life. It's not really like that. It's just, this is a very interesting person that I want to carry on speaking with. And for those of you who have tuned into last week's episode, you will know that the way that I approach dating apps is, let's be friends first and let's see what happens later, right? Relationship or whatever, right? So if I'm interested in getting to know a person, I would like follow up at least once more. Yeah. So, and that's because it is too easy now for dating. Some people, it just slips their mind, or they are busy. And I can speak from experience, right? Sometimes when I don't reply quickly enough, it's not like, oh, I don't like you or something like that. Yeah, it's just I have other priorities of messages to get through, like clients messaging, etc. Of course, I'll reply my clients first. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like there's almost so there's expectations that you on apps, at the early stage on apps, you messaging people, whatever. You I think all of us have expectations that you won't get replies for every single message you send, and I don't think you really feel bad about it unless you're really strongly invested and you have strong expectations that, or you have a hunch that really this could have worked out, and that's so then my question is like, so is that a case where I suppose that's fine, not getting a reply, you can probably, you won't get really hurt not getting a reply, and probably the person not replying shouldn't really feel bad about it, since there's no expectations that has to be there. But I feel like, at what point then do you feel that would be important to really make an effort to try to give a reply? Meaning, at what point, and on the other way of looking at it is like, at what point, like in the process, would you think like, oh, at that stage, I think like, yeah, getting ghosted will definitely hurt.
Getting ghosted will help?
It will hurt. Will definitely be painful.
Hurt.
Hurt.
Yeah.
I would say that if I get a sense that this person is taking things, feels like she wants to take things to the next level, and I am not ready for it, and I know that we are definitely looking for different things, like, this is a really nice person, we've got something going, it's just that we are both looking for different things, or we're at different stages, then okay, maybe I should put it this way, where I feel like this person is not just a random person that I've met on an app, but this person is now a friend to me, and I care for my friends, right? So if I think of it that way, then it also allows me to be more open with the person and tell the person that, oh, I don't feel like this is working out. And it's all in the air of openness and honesty and transparency and managing each other's expectations, right? I wouldn't. It's painful to be ghosted, especially if you're interested in the other person, right? So I wouldn't want my friends to feel that way. Yeah. Emery, what do you think?
I think that when there is some sort of emotional attachment
Yeah.
with someone, that's
Mm.
when I think being ghosted would be really painful, right? Because with, emotional attachment comes also this very basic expectation that, you communicate about stuff. Well, at least, in sort of talking about whether or not this thing is going well, or, are we feeling the same way, or are we on completely different pages, right? Because to have that attachment to begin with, there has to be some sort of a trust. And really, ghosting is essentially breaking that trust, eroding that trust you had built sort of, over days or weeks or even months. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like at that point I feel an obligation to come clean with the person. Yeah, it's painful to suddenly lose something that you love or something or someone that you care about. Yeah, and I mean, if I've gone through something like that before, and I just don't want anyone to feel that. I think it's very painful to not have some kind of closure. Yeah. Okay. So what do you do if someone is ghosting you? Like how do you think about it? Right.
This is when you go to your friends and you rant and you rally support, and your friends all go, yes, that was terrible. That was so rude and disrespectful.
and they'll tell you, oh, you are the problem.
No. No,
Yeah,
certainly
so
I wouldn't do that. What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, okay, exactly what kind of reassurance do we need then, Like what part of us have been hurt? I think many parts have been hurt. Like, definitely, I think there's like a self-esteem aspect our
Yes.
self-esteem has been hurt, meaning we felt like we had some worth for the person. I felt, maybe we had something to bring, and so there's that part that's hurt. And then I feel there's also an element of like our, I don't know how you call that, but our ability to get the vibe, like, to be perceptive about a relationship, like that might get also hurt. Like you, in a sense that you would say, oh, I thought I could read the person, I had a good sense of what was going on, that seemed to go well. And then suddenly it's not. So it's like, okay, what's wrong with me for not seeing that coming, right?
So
why
you
have
don't
I
trust yourself.
Yeah, you in the sense that sometimes you don't trust yourself, but you find, suddenly I feel like you find yourself in a position where you have to reevaluate how you assess relationships and how relationships are going. Like, how it's hard, because especially if in a dating process, you're like, okay, if I could not tell from those few dates, whatever the story is, that things weren't going well. And if I was thinking like, oh, everything was great, when really obviously it was not, like what's going to happen at the next date and the one after? Is that just going to be a pattern, and each time I'm able to tell whether the connection is genuine or not, and each time it's going to be like a surprise, like just a lottery. It's hard to live with, I feel. Yeah.
And it's also tough because you feel like you're not in control anymore of the situation. Yeah, and it's hard to read people, right? Even after a long time. So it's, yeah, I would say for me, in the past, it used to affect me a lot because of my self-esteem, etc. And also because when I was in secondary school, so quite a few people knew me. All right, so the ego got hit really, really bad, right? Like everyone knows that, oh, Sean liked somebody and that person rejected Sean, or the person ghosted Sean or something like that, right? Yeah. Then cannot take it. Yeah, now I handle it much better, right? I mean, the way that I think about it right now, it was just never going to work out, and it's better that I find out earlier. Right. It doesn't hurt me as much. And while I used to think a lot about, whose fault is it that this thing didn't work out? In the past, I might say, that person doesn't understand me and stuff like that. Now it's like, it's okay. We're just different people. Yeah. And when I look at it from that perspective, it's just easier for me.
So I'm wondering, so do you think that there's an element, so on the first season, we talk about self-judgment, shame. So do you think there's an element of shame you're not aware of? Like you carry some shame for all the reasons we've talked about, for not seeing, the thing coming, for maybe being judged with, like, maybe especially when you're younger, by friends,
Sometimes. Also, about, I think, 2 months ago, I caught up for dinner with someone whom I met from the app. She's a fellow healthcare professional. We chat, we got along really well. Right. And as always, I'm interested to meet a new person. And also because she's from a different healthcare profession from myself. So I'm always interested in what other healthcare professionals do, because I know that the job that I do as me and my friends do as pharmacists is tough, right? There are intricacies in every job that we don't understand. So I was very excited for the meetup. We caught up, and during the dinner, things actually went pretty well, right? There was a nice conversation going, but it at the end of that, I felt something wasn't right, and I was trying very, very hard to define it, right? Because the conversation flowed, but something wasn't right, and at the end of that evening, we're like, "Oh, thank you for the meal." That was it. That was the end of everything. Despite the most comfortable conversation ever. And usually with another healthcare professional, I can get into pretty good conversations, right? Because we're all in the same industry. And then when I realized, when I thought back on that particular dinner, I was basically talking nonstop, because she was asking me a lot of questions, but I didn't actually ask a lot of questions back. So it was comfortable for me because I just keep asking. After I realized how much do I know about the other person? Actually, not that much. Yeah, and so when I felt like, the conversation went well, maybe this is a person whom I could catch up again and get to know a little bit better. But yeah. And that's where I realized, okay, so that's why it suddenly just ended, right? Yeah, there were no replies anymore.
But that's not a ghosting experience, is it? Would you consider that?
It felt like it. It seems.
It felt like it because I left the final message and there was no reply from there anymore.
Right. And I mean, there's also a lot of the stuff we talked about, like the fact that you have, as the stuff was ongoing, you were like, yeah, this is going great.
Yeah.
And actually it wasn't, but you weren't aware of it in the moment. I mean, you realize afterwards why, maybe. But so I think that there was definitely that mismatch between kind of your evaluation, your assessment of the date, like, it went great. Things on which you build up expectations, and then just the expectations not being fulfilled at all, and seeing that you were maybe all wrong about your assessment and how you're. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does. But what I would say is that it didn't hurt me that much, because I just wanted to meet that person as a friend, to get to know that person a little bit better. That was, as I don't expect anything much from it. Sometimes you just wish that, could make another friend. And especially based on my work situation right now, I don't meet that many other people. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting for me. Well, okay, let's talk about this, right? So, what do you do when someone ghosts you? Right? Do you message back? Okay, if you're interested in the person, maybe okay, you will say, yeah, all right, follow up. Oh, how's your day? And start a brand new conversation, kind of thing, right? But let's say there is a topic that is left hanging there. All right, the other person did not answer your question. Do you message back again, or do you just leave it as it is and assume that that's the end?
Amerie, you wanna go?
I'm trying to think of an example. Like, you mean like a topic that we're like a dialogue, like
So let's say
conversation?
I am chatting with you, for example. Okay, I'm chatting, and let's say you're maybe you're not that interested anymore, right? So I ask you a question, and then you look at it, and you're like, I'm going to do something else, right? Or it's just not that important. So
Mhm.
what do I do, right? Do I reply again and ask you, oh, did you see my message? Or do I reply to you and on a totally different topic, right? Just because you want to either make sure you're not being ghosted or to try to keep the conversation flowing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely nudge me because I mean it happens, right? And suddenly I would do the same as well. Like if someone didn't read my text, um, yeah, and if I remember it, and I'll probably just go, "Did you miss that?" If it was important enough, yeah.
If it was very early in the dating stage, like you've met this person maybe once, or maybe you haven't even met at all, and you're still chatting on the app, for example.
Mm, maybe not. I mean,
Because
I don't know. Like it's
but if you don't reply, that's the end.
yeah.
If
So
I
again,
if
it
I don't
depends.
reply,
It
yeah.
depends. Like is there some sort of an attachment there? Is it worthwhile? Right. Again, it's also how much weight you're putting onto this budding relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I mean,
Nico,
if I really sorry. Okay,
go
go.
Yeah,
carry
no,
on.
finish your. No, I'm curious about. Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna say if it's something really important to me, I'll be quite persistent as usual.
Nico, how do you handle being ghosted? How do you think about it? What do you do?
Okay, how I would, I don't know. Um, I don't know. I don't have like a huge ghosting wisdom to share. But I would say, so I would say what I would consider like the ideal response. Like if I were to think about it and think, oh yeah, you handled that well, I thought that would be some kind of like, I think if I really cared, I would probably just move on. Like I wouldn't persist, I think, which may, I
Wait,
would
if
be
you
like,
really cared, you would. If you really
yeah,
cared,
yeah, I think I would move on because I'd be like, okay, if I'm that invested and I'm getting those signals, this is going nowhere. You get what I
But
mean?
but then
Like,
it's like one. I mean, Sean's context was maybe one text, right? That wasn't responded to,
oh,
right?
yeah, I would check. Like I would, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I would send another thing. I wouldn't be like, oh, okay, yeah, I get what you mean. Okay, so I missed that. So I wouldn't be, hey, you see the text, but I would send something else, kind of like,
uh-huh.
you know.
You're not worried
And
that it makes you appear to be needy or desperate.
I think no. I mean, I think as if if we agree that it's like one message left unread,
Yeah.
yeah, I would wait a bit, and just send something else, and just if it's no reply, I would just leave it at that. I think. Yeah.
Well, okay, if it's twice, then that's definitely a clear sign that something is not working out.
Yeah.
If you get ghosted once, it's one thing. If you get ghosted twice,
Yeah. But to me,
I think the message is quite clear.
yeah. But the one message thing, like say to me, one message left unread is not ghosted.
No, it's not.
No,
It
it's,
happens. It's
it
like
means,
scatterbrain syndrome.
I've had times where, like I'm very slow to reply
Yeah,
any
we
kind
know
of
that.
message.
Yeah.
So some people might not know that. People you just meet might not know like how you typically, what's your reply pattern. Some people, sometimes some people work, they cannot, check their phone, so they might go offline for like, the whole work day. Or there's things that happen, and so I don't think on the first message it would be. It's possible sometimes that just on that first message left unread for like over 8 hours, and that we get all emotional over it. And I think that might be a time to pause and think, okay, why am I getting so worked up on just one message? After just like a couple of hours, for instance, or 4 hours, especially if we don't know what the pattern for the person is. Maybe we're
because
over-invested.
you're worried.
Because
You're worried, right? Because you're worried that you might lose the person,
yeah,
and this person might be the one that you feel like, oh my god, like I've been seeing so many people. This feels like the perfect match for me, and this person is not responding as quickly or as consistently, and I don't want to
you're
lose
like,
this person.
oh, bummer. Like the person is just should not just not interested, or the person is not interested.
That's hard to accept, right?
Yeah, it's hard to accept. Yeah.
It's very similar to being rejected.
But I feel, to me, it's like a measure of like what's your investment also in the potential relationship and the person. I think it's a gauge of kind of like where you are at. Like, so if you have like a lot of like emotions coming up and it's like a big upset, I think that's a clue that, okay, there's something going on here, and sometimes it might be a surprise. You might maybe be chatting with someone, and you, on the surface, you might be cool about it and not really invested, and suddenly like 4 hours, 6 hours you're left on read, and then you're starting to get like emotional. This can be interesting signals as well. The happy ending would be you getting a reply eventually and things go well. But I think how you respond also, it can be interesting, and just how emotionally invested you are sometimes, I think, can be useful to see. Yeah.
Do you think it's okay to ghost someone through text, or do you think it's important that you get on the phone call or see the person face to face?
Okay, I think you really have to define the context, because like
so
how many dates are we? Is it like after one date, after like 4 dates? Is it just like
okay, so let's say you get what I mean? If you haven't met each other yet, then it's probably okay to end by text, right? If let's say you've caught up with the person once or twice, right? You've had conversations, but you feel it's not working out, maybe for whatever reason, right? Do you think it's okay to ghost somebody, just like, just leave it like that, or
I think it's hard.
how do you say? Yeah. No, because I was thinking, right, if you meet somebody and tell them it's not working out, that's not ghosting anymore. That's just a nice way of ending it.
Yeah. But then there are instances.
So again,
I speak from experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry?
So we're back on like, at which stage is it ghosting? Is it actually hurtful? At which stage is there some like I don't want to say relationship, but kind of like dating process? Is there some kind of like, is it bad, I would say, to not send that message or maybe make that phone call?
Okay, let's think about it then from the ghostees perspective, the ghosties, the person who's being ghosted, right? So let's say you don't get that reply, and if you're looking for closure, do you message the person and ask the person honestly if, oh, is this over? Is this the end? Or do you just leave it that way? What do you think? Because okay, like for me, I'll just leave it. Yeah, and just assume that the other person is not interested. I'm not going to go back and seek an explanation.
But it
I'd leave
depends
it
on the
as
nature
well.
of your relationship, right? I mean, like, are you friends first? Like, is there this idea that you might be friends still, even if things don't work out?
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, it's complicated because it's
It
really
is.
it will be, you get like you maybe have like 100 different situations, like how are you, where are you in the dating process, like how do you feel, how do you assess the relationship, like how do you feel it's going, is it going well, is it going bad, have you been feeling like some kind of like emotional distance with the person for if you are a few dates in. I think it's really too about what are your expectations about how well it's going. I feel that's my sense. Like if you have some kind of hints that some things are not going well, I'm like, fine. I mean, I get it, and then I can leave that as it is. I understand that it can be hard sometimes to, as it is for everyone, to just send the SMS that clearly say, okay, I think we're good here, or make that phone call. So I get it. So I might just be like, fine. I mean, I just leave it at that. But I think if there's a sense that, oh, there was something going on, there was like a strong connection, and it was still happening, I would tend to feel, no, I think like I sense a connection, the person sensed a connection, there was some signals that, that might go further. I might ask, because then I'd be like, I think now that the person, given that kind of situation, my sense is that I think the person now kind of has a responsibility to say something. Like, I think if you don't say something, send an SMS that you're clear about, I think you suck. I think you're like, you cannot, you get what I mean? So I'm like, you can approach it two ways. You can be like, just give an opportunity for the person to do that. But I feel that there's really, my sense that there is a responsibility on the person to do that, yeah. Or frame it as, but I think we're going out of the direction, but just kind of getting a sense of like, is that something I was not seeing? Like what was wrong about my assessment, what was going on,
Amerie, would
Tell me
you
the
go
kind
and
of answer do
pursue
you
a
want? Yeah.
yeah, would you go and pursue a reason why the person has suddenly stopped responding? Or do you draw your own conclusions?
If we had something decent going, yeah, I might just, I might do that. Yeah. And I mean, sorry, I just have a lot of thoughts in my head because I'm also thinking of like experiences where, I tried to draw the line, but I think the other party didn't get it and kept coming back. I mean, it was really very clear, and yeah, they couldn't get it. So yeah, a few examples like that. And so yeah, sometimes it's not that I think you want to be ghosting someone. Like in my opinion, that really wasn't, because I think I was really clear, and I explained, and I think it was really out in the open. But I think it was harder for the other party to hear it. Yeah. So, and then they would try again and again, but at some point it's really hard to keep responding. Yeah. And so that was what was in my head, that perhaps sometimes the ghoster might not be intentionally ghosting. In fact, there was already communication about it, and there was some sort of a closure, but then the other party might want to reopen the channels again and again. So it makes it really hard, right?
No, that's persistence.
Yeah, that's why it's so
Yeah, I mean,
challenging, because how do you
yeah.
assess it, right? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but then I think, I mean, my idea of persistence is definitely gentler, not like rigid, perseverative persistence, but yeah. So there's situations like that, and then on the part of having like being on the receiving end of being ghosted, it would be really hurtful if it's a relationship that had been quite stable, or I mean, if it's in earlier days of dating, you already had some sort of a bond or attachment or some sort of understanding. I mean, if you had gone out on a few dates, right, gotten quite comfortable with the other person, and there's already some sense of trust, like I said earlier, right, to be on the receiving end of being ghosted is painful, right? You'll be left hanging. And if this happens a few times, it's very easy for someone to feel, we talked about shame earlier, this sense of not being good enough, like, am I defective, is there something wrong with me, right? So I think with apps and all, with the proliferation of all of these quick dates you could have, people sometimes forget the more basic etiquette of respect. I think it's important to realize that our actions have impact on someone else, even if it's someone we don't really haven't met for a long time, or would never meet again, maybe down the road. It's so important to realize that we can do this in a kinder way, right? If especially if you've had a couple of dates, it's important to let someone else know where you're at, instead of just kind of slipping away, because the other person might go, is there something wrong with me? You might not realize, but that party could have gone on a few dates and experienced this ghosting several times, and they might go away thinking something is wrong with them, not realizing that this is what other people think could be a norm of dating, right? So I think that just this basic etiquette could be so helpful in improving dating experiences of people using the app. Yeah.
So then
If
I'm
some-
wondering, yeah, I'm sorry.
Go, Nico.
So then I'm wondering why, why do we ghost? Like, as in, what are the many reasons that we might be ghosting? So you mentioned, the person not getting like signals, even where you actually explicitly stated like this is over, it's not going anywhere. That's one case that would be legitimate to ghost. I mean, if the person is just not getting it, if you tell them, then you just have that distance. But I'm wondering why we might doing it? Why might we be doing it in borderline cases? When there's no. You get what I mean? Why?
Sometimes it's the easy way out. It's the easy way out.
It is. But what I'm interested in is that what is so hard about stating explicitly where you're at? Why is it so hard? Because it is hard.
It's a difficult conversation.
Even for people who never ghost, it's always hard to say we never have and we never do it. It's very hard to sit down and be like, okay, I'm making that phone call. I'm gonna send an SMS, or I might meet that person and discuss in person. Always hard. Yeah.
So we talked about conflict avoidance, right? I mean, that could be the fear that having that conversation will lead to something big, like something explosive, or it could lead to some sort of disagreement. And, if one is a lot more passive, it could be an easier way to just slip away and not have that conversation and assume that the other party knows that, that's what's happening.
And so, so the conflict thing is interesting, because then I feel it's warranted as a fear then, because, when you go to someone and you open about the fact that, okay, maybe you're not that into them, or you don't think this is going to be further, you're essentially stating it's hard to open up, be vulnerable, and say that to someone. And I feel it's can be pretty brutal to getting aggressivity in response. You get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean?
So in the sense, so what Amerie just said. So in the sense that that fear of like moving into a conflict, even if you're not into, so you might not enjoy going into a conflict, and avoid like any kind of conflict in your life.
Yeah.
But this is still different because this is really having a conflict about how you feel, about you stating how you feel. Like,
well, so you might state how you feel. One of the reasons I've heard from another friend who's ghosted people that she's met on dating apps is because she says that, if sometimes it will just hurt their feelings too much, so I'd rather just not say anything.
Yeah.
Right. So she feels like she's thinking from the guy's perspective. Yeah. She says, I don't like you anymore. She says, what if they feel very bad? So I'd rather just keep quiet. Right. That's what she says. What do you think? Like a possible reason? Because you're worried about hurting the other person?
I mean,
Possible.
Well, yeah, it's
Possible,
possible.
But
Possible. It could be that. Yeah. So could be also that you concerned that you might have, that you kind of concerned about what you might have to deal with in terms of aftermath. Like, do I have to manage the person after I said that? Do we gonna have to have a conversation after that? What the person gonna need? Do they expect some kind of like care from me after I've told them that? Like, do I need to stick around and make sure they're okay? That's pressure as well.
I think so, because not everyone is comfortable expressing how they feel, right? Sometimes if you tell the person that, okay, I don't think this is working out between us, the logical follow-up question would be why, and then the person who has to answer it now becomes, now I have to talk about how I feel, and I have to now be vulnerable, and that's very uncomfortable, right? Because sometimes the fault doesn't lie with the person being ghosted. Sometimes the fault lies with the ghoster himself or herself. Yeah, or there's something that the ghoster doesn't really want to share, like, I met somebody else who's better than you. That's very uncomfortable to share, and I can imagine it's difficult for another person to hear, because the message you're sending is not really, I feel I'm more compatible with the other person. The message that you're actually sending is, you are not as good as the other person that I've met.
Good enough, or you just generally not good enough, or
and that can really hurt.
Yeah, so it makes sense to me that you want to avoid telling someone, sorry, you're not good enough.
Reminds me of when I have to reject candidates for a job interview. Yeah, and the typical message you send is, we've chosen the person that we feel is most that fits the profile we are looking for in the best way, right? The closest fit to the profile we are looking for. Yeah, it's similar, right? Just that through email, it can be a formal reply. It's a standard way of telling somebody, we've chosen the other better person. But in a relationship, when it's a non-professional kind of setting, that's much tougher. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on, right? And let's go to the point where we now say that, okay, you've been ghosted, all right, like, and you'll be like, you feel crap for a while, and after that, okay, fine, life goes on, all right, and then the ghost returns. The ghost comes back to
resurrected.
Okay, so you suddenly get a message from a person who hasn't even replied to your previous question 5 months ago. What do? Right? Would you talk to that person? Would you reconnect with that person? Would you feel like, damn, like, you screwed me up once. I don't want to. I want to have nothing to do with you anymore. Like, how would you approach that situation if you heard from somebody for the first time in 5 months, and you haven't even answered your previous question on text?
So I think, assuming we were quite invested, right? Assuming that we really wanted to have that to go further, right? Yeah.
You would. You would talk to that person again.
Well,
really?
I think, in the sense that I don't know. I was never in that situation, so it's kind of hard. But no, probably not. And I was not saying I would. What I was saying was that, okay, if that's something you weren't really invested in, it's not even a question. It's a no. Like, no one, just why bother, right? So what I'm saying is that it's a more interesting question. I mean, more complicated question if we assume that there was some kind of investment and there were a few dates, there was really something going on here. That's a much difficult question to answer. For me, I think it would still be no, but then I cannot say I've been in that situation. So that might look very different if I'm in that situation, and I could see, like, I really cannot say more than that. Yeah. But I don't think it's an easy question to answer. That's what I want to say. Yeah.
What would you do, Amerie? The ghost suddenly appears out of nowhere. Would you re-engage with the ghost, or would you send him back to where he came from?
Does it have to be a romantic context?
Probably yes. Let's say it's someone you met on a dating app.
Yeah, but there was some investment, right? Because otherwise,
yeah, you at least chat for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, I'm usually quite open to receiving like emails or messages. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I forget that there was something left hanging, and then I resume.
Wow, so in demand.
No, but I mean, it's like, okay, like for me, it's sometimes the connection, right? And I mean, just today I received an email from someone I met in Romania in 2009 on the streets. We kept in touch. I mean, this is definitely not romantic or anything like that, but it's just you get surprised and you go, oh, okay, that's nice. Let's have a bit of a chat and just kind of figure out what's going on in each other's lives. And it's just more out of curiosity. And our conversations are quite sporadic. It's maybe once a few years.
Once in a few years.
Interesting. Yeah, once in a few years. And it's interesting. It's interesting. And suddenly, I mean, this is, I think, the kind of spirit I'll take to conversations generally. So if someone just pops out and says hi, I usually go, yeah, what's up? Yeah.
So you won't go like, oh, like after 5 months, you finally decided to appear. What do you want now?
I don't know. Like, I might have that thought, but then I'll still go with quite an open mind, I would say. I mean, I guess just the sense of curiosity would override everything else. Yeah.
So would you feel that you might need, like, so say, assuming you would be interested to go further, maybe, is there a point where you think, oh, I might still need an explanation about what happened? Or you would just, I mean, you would actually ask for it, or would you just let it come if it comes, or if not, that's fine?
It depends on how, I guess, the reconnection goes, and also what I'm seeking.
Yeah, assuming you're seeking more. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I'm seeking more, definitely the question will come out at some stage, because then I'll need some clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how would you know it's not going to happen again, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's why you want some kind of And I assume most
Reassurance.
people we need pretty high standards. They will have high expectation in terms of the kind of answer they would receive. Like, like a death in a family or something pretty heavy to justify,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, no one likes to be, say a rebound or,
Yeah.
second choice,
Yeah.
right? Or plan B.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's only fair that, if a ghoster were to reemerge, that they have a good and honest explanation for what's happening there.
What if it was honest but not good?
Then it's up to Ghosty to decide whether or not that's worthwhile.
I actually reconnected with someone like more than 5 years after we last spoke.
Mm-hmm.
So before my previous relationship started, that was about like 5.5 years, now 6 years ago, right? So I was on dating apps, like trying to figure out that time. I think there was only Tinder. So Tinder just came out at that point. Okay, or I was late to the game, whatever, right? It was my first time trying a dating app. Had a conversation with someone. I didn't reply her. And at that point was because I decided to like get together with my ex-girlfriend, right? So stop replying. 5.5 years down the road, or almost 6 years down the road after I broke up my now ex-girlfriend, and I went back on dating apps. We met on a separate dating app and we connected. And she was like, "You ghosted me 5.5 years ago."
And she was
Sean.
right. Put you on the spot.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
well, she did not ask why.
Yeah, that was
But
the early
okay, but
part,
the
right?
difference is because we met under the circumstance of matching on a separate app. Right. So we just took time to chat and to understand what's been going on in each other's lives. And well, actually we found out nothing much has like really changed much about our work life and things like that. Yeah. And after a while, I think 2 weeks, 3 weeks, the conversation just died off, and yeah, that's it.
Like a natural death or like a
Yeah.
ghosting kind of?
And it just died a natural death, because at some point you
Okay.
caught up on everything, and you realize that, I actually have to think very hard on what the next question should be.
Yeah.
And if I find that, if I do it once and the conversation flows, that's perfectly fine. But if I have to very consistently think of, okay, now what do I ask? Or I have to go and find something interesting to ask. I think that's too much work for to move forward to the next stage, right? And not too much work, not as if I'm lazy, but there is a lack of chemistry somewhere.
Yeah. You mean the conversation is not fun and bouncy enough? That's what you mean.
We're bringing Bouncy back.
Yeah. After our episode was it the love episode? Was it I don't know. The previous one?
Yeah. The conversation has to bounce. Yeah, it has to bounce. Yeah. The more bouncers, the better, right? That's where you get to know someone more intimately, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, are we mixing stuff now?
Okay. We're past the hour mark, and I think it's time to wrap up our thoughts on ghosting. And I will start, right? So I think in the past, for me, ghosting someone was largely because I did not have the guts to say what I feel. And at some point, I could not define how I was actually feeling. I could not interpret the entire situation, right? Things got better after I started writing diaries and, being honest with myself. And right now, I think with dating apps it's just easier for you to ghost somebody by just simply not replying. Last time you had to get on a phone to connect with somebody, and for me right now, I think because I'm clearer what I'm looking for or what I'm not looking for. So it makes it easier for me to just directly tell the person in a very respectful way. Yeah. And that way, I think that's closure for me, that's closure for the person. And then we can then decide, okay, do you still want to be friends, or is this like that's the end kind of thing? Yeah. And so overall, I would say, I don't think ghosting is right. But it can be it can be the easier way out, depending on how emotionally attached you are to the person. Yeah. Amerie, you want to go next?
Yeah, that last bit was my line, right? That it really depends on how emotionally attached you are, and whether or not ghosting could serve its function, and I guess not hurting someone else. Because I think at the end of the day, it really, dating is also really about respecting the other person you're going out with, whether or not it eventually it materializes something else that's separate. But at the end of the day, you're dealing with another human being, and to ghost on someone, we gotta also think about some of the contextual stuff we talked about earlier. If this is someone you've had some sort of interactions with for a while, there's some sort of attachment there, it is a lot more respectful and less hurtful to be open to someone else to say, this is how I'm feeling right now, it might not be working, than to just kind of slip away all of a sudden, and the other person will be left hanging. It can be really painful for someone else. Yeah.
Nico.
Yeah, I think I think whether you ghosting or you get, I think if you're ghosting, it's helpful to see to try to investigate, try to sense what's so hard about being open about how you feel, what makes it so difficult. I would say even if you're actually systematically replying or saying, bringing closure to the person, it's also useful to get a sense of like how hard it is to do that, because I believe it's hard for everyone. And I think when you see that, you realize that people who ghost do that because they have that face those obstacles. And it's not necessarily about you, about your self-worth, about anything that has to do with you. It's just the ghoster issues only, unless they tell you otherwise. And if they don't tell you otherwise, you can assume that it's only about them. It's not about you. And so your self-esteem is safe. Even though it's hard and you still feel hurt, you can have that kind of sense that, okay, at the end, it's okay, which I think makes it easier to grieve that hurt in self-esteem and what could have been and so on. And going back to the ghoster perspective, I feel that seeing the obstacles or the difficulty in communicating how you feel about someone, it's always a very useful thing, because if you're interested in getting a relationship, if you're dating, that's something you're going to have to learn to do in a relationship. Meaning you're going to have to learn to have difficult conversation, be open and vulnerable about what's working, what's not working. And there's no way you can sustain a relationship until you're able to do that.
To be vulnerable.
Yeah, be vulnerable and knowing why it's hard for you to speak up, what makes it difficult for you to share things that don't work. And so I think being in that position, having to tell someone, sorry, this is not working, yes, it's extremely difficult, but it's a good, I would say, almost preparation for what the skills you're going to need in a relationship, like being able to know what are your resistance and find a way to work around them to still share how you feel.
Agree.
Yeah. And everything we've spoken about, also we have not touched in depth, or maybe not very much at all, about someone ghosting another person to boost his or her own self-esteem, or just because he or she wants to feel big and powerful and put somebody else down in that way. Yeah, so this is all from the perspective of, you feel like it's not working out and you just want to end it in a way, and to ghost or not to ghost. All right. Thank you for your thoughts. Next week, we are moving on to another stage of the relationship process. First week, we spoke about, are we friends or is this love? This week, in a Halloween special, We spoke about what ghosting really is. Well, next week, what's it like to get together with
Next
somebody?
episode.
Next episode, which is 2 weeks later, right? What's it like to get together with somebody else? How do you have that conversation? Do you have that conversation? Have you ever been pressured into getting together with somebody else? Well, I have. Okay.
Ultimatums as well. You know.
Sorry. What?
Ultimatums. You know.
Oh yeah,
Did you have an ultimatum, some kind of
yeah,
you have to know by
that was exactly it. I was given an ultimatum.
Oh, you were. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I got together with someone, and I kind of regretted it, right? So
Okay.
yeah, we'll share that story 2 weeks later. So thank you everyone else who's here, who's joined us for this episode. We are Sandbox, and we will see you 2 weeks later, Sunday at 10:30 Singapore time. All right, thanks for joining us. Bye bye.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.